Can you hear me now? That was terrible. Horizon. Okay. So when your dad took you to your parking lot or your mom took you to the parking lot or at the dealership, did they advocate for a small, fast sports car made out of plastic? Mine did, but he has a really good taste in cars. Most parents would argue, no, you want to go with the Volvo S70, right? The thing that weighs 4 tons, has a solid steel frame, has 973 airbags around you. It's the safest thing possible. Why do they want to get you that car? In other words, they love you, right? They love you, and they want to make sure you're okay if you crash your car. So this is the way we've been thinking about car safety and vehicle weight forever. Bigger cars are safer. If you go to my son's school, I drive a VW Tiguan, not the most attractive car on the road, but it was a good deal, which is already a ridiculously big car. My car is about half the size of the average car in the parking lot there. Really, really big cars. There's this infinity thing that I can actually take a nap in its shadow standing up. The thing is so big. But the point here is we've always thought heavier cars are safer. If you see what we shuttle the average kid around in the Bay Area, they're big SUVs, right? Big cars or 7 Series type cars. So there's a very famous paper in economics by Crandall and Graham in 1989. Which essentially argued making cars lighter is bad, right? Because if you make cars lighter, you kill people. You have somebody get in an accident in a lighter car, they're more likely to die or get severely injured. Therefore, these CAFE standards, which regulate fuel efficiency and in turn make cars lighter, are a bad thing as they kill lots of Americans every year. That was the word in the street, and this is how we thought about this issue for 1989. That's a long time ago, 26 years, right? Oh, wow, that's shocking. I was 16 then. Ouch. But this is what we focused on. So lighter cars are bad. Now, I don't like that way of thinking about the world because it ignores something, right? So what happens if you, inexperienced driver, plow me down in my 1987 Honda Civic in your giant Infiniti, what's it, the QX90, I think is the big one? Maybe the 70. What happens to me? I am toast, right? So you hit me in your giant car, I'm toast. If you would have also had a Fiat 500 and me my Honda Civic, I would have less likely to have been toast. That's terrible grammar. But the point here is, I have no control over what vehicle you buy and you hit me with. So what you do when you go on the parking, and this is not you guys, right? You means the representative driver in the U.S. going onto a dealership lot. What you do when you choose your vehicle is you determine your own level of safety and you pay for that, right? Bigger cars are usually more expensive, but you pay for that. You internalize the cost of that safety by paying for that additional vehicle weight and the safety features. But what do you not pay for? What do you do by choosing a huge car? Oh, you're smart. You're already 2 steps ahead of me. I was looking for the much simpler answer here. But this is great. So you should get an A for this lecture. But the point here is if you hit somebody else with that heavier car instead of a counterfactual lighter car, you've imposed an externality on others, a safety externality on others that you're not paying for, right? You're just paying for the private safety benefit to yourself, but you're not paying for the damage or the potential fatality and injury risk that you impose upon other roadway participants. So this is the basic premise that Mike and I started with, which is the entire literature has ignored the fact that private vehicle choice has an external cost upon all the other roadway participants that we're currently completely ignoring in the safety literature and in policy design. So we ask a really simple question: how big are these external costs? If they're really small, maybe we shouldn't worry about them. People should drive around in these ridiculously big vehicles, right? But if they're really big, then maybe we should think about downsizing the vehicle fleet. And we're going to get to that point you said, which is this arms race issue that people respond to. I respond to you buying a bigger car by me buying a bigger car because I'm scared of you now, right? So what did we do? We did something pretty cool here. We wrote to every police chief in the nation, and we said we would like the universe of accident data for your state. Then we figured out that not every police chief records something called a VIN number for the vehicles involved in accidents, so we got left with a bunch of states, but big ones like Florida. And we have now a population of 36 million vehicles in police-reported accidents from 8 very different states. We have big urban states, we have small rural states, we have a nice distribution across the country. What we did, which is new here, is for each vehicle in an accident, the police writes down the VIN number. Everybody here knows what the VIN number is. It's an ID that goes with a specific vehicle, not vehicle type. So your car, if you look in your windshield, there's a little metal sticker thing. It's also on your engine block that gives a unique ID to your vehicle. Now, I know for each one of these 36 million vehicles what that unique vehicle ID is. What I can do with that is I can buy for a lot of money from a consulting firm a decoder that tells me what type of car was in that crash and how much it weighs. So Mike and I assigned to each one of these vehicles the actual vehicle weight. So we know how heavy the car was. We know what type of car it was. There were some beautiful cars being crashed in the data set that made me cry a little bit. But we know a lot about these individual accidents here. So what we're going to do here is using fancy econometrics. Has everybody in here taken econometrics yet? I'm not going to talk a lot about it. Who here has taken econometrics? If you haven't, you should. All right? So even if you're never going to use it in your life to estimate anything, the ability to read regression tables is something that will give you an edge on others when you're competing in the job market. No matter whether you go into consulting, policy, private firms, marketing, whatever it is you're going to do yourself that favor and take the class. It's hard. Some of you are not going to like it, but it really is a distinguishing feature to the people who didn't take it. So take it. All right? And Betty Satterley, when she teaches it, is, I don't know who else teaches this, but Betty is awesome. She's very tough, but she's one of the best teachers on campus, I would argue. Very tough, but very good. So what we're going to do is we're going to estimate a relationship between the weight of the vehicle that hits you and the probability of you dying in an accident, right? So for each accident, I observe whether somebody died in a vehicle or not, and I know the weight of the vehicle that the person was in and the weight of the vehicle that the other person, the striking vehicle, had. So I'm going to figure out whether heavier vehicles are more likely to kill people in the struck vehicle. What do you think we're going to find? Yes. And we took this thing, we really put this thing through the works, right? So I'm going to show you in a minute. We looked at where you're driving, where the accident was, driver characteristics, how long you've had your license, how old the driver was, what time of the day it happened, did it happen in a rural state, on a highway, not on a highway. So we do this 150 different ways and come up with the exact same number using all 150 different ways. So this is a really good question, right? You always have to make sure that whatever effect you're showing isn't actually due to some confounding factor, right? Maybe riskier drivers, right? Crazy young dudes like a 17-year-old myself. Michael Schumacher was, my god when I was 18. The man was so fast. So we all imitated him on the German Autobahn. So you go, I had a VW Bug at a point. That thing goes 160 kilometers an hour, believe it or not. Not safe, but you can do it. So maybe riskier drivers select into heavier cars and they get into worse accidents, so it's the risky drivers that do it, not the heavier vehicles. So things like that you should really worry about, and we do, I think, a pretty convincing job of controlling for that type of unobservable. But that was an excellent question. Okay. So what I'm going to show you some results because people go to sleep right before lunch. So I want you to get the take-home message before we take it apart. But we find that these effects are massive, right? Vehicle weight has a huge effect on the probability of fatality in the struck vehicle. So an additional 1,000 pounds in weight increases the fatality probability of the other vehicle by 0.12%. You're like, 0.12%? That's tiny, right? That's nothing. Well, you have to compare that to the baseline fatality, right? The probability of being in a fatality, in a fatal accident, conditional on being in an accident, is really, really small, right? It's about 0.24, I believe. So by 0.12% actually represents the probability of a fatality in an accident goes up by almost 50%, right, relative to what it were the vehicle 1,000 pounds lighter. Now, I'm going to ignore the second bullet because that's a technical point and sounds somewhat strange. What I'm going to talk about a little bit later, and what this is meant to say, is a counterfactual in your head, right? What would be nice is if you could make sure that all striking vehicles are 1,000 pound lighter and ignore the struck vehicles, leave them the same. Obviously, you can't do that, right? You can try and make the vehicle fleet on a diet and make every car lose 1,000 pounds over a decade or something like that. But if every car loses 1,000 pounds, then the protective benefit from the additional weight has gone away, but also the external cost from the striking vehicle has gone away, and the probability of a fatality has remained unchanged, right? So this causes an issue here that if we make the vehicle fleet lose weight, the number of fatalities is going to stay unchanged, which is going to be a sort of weird result in the end, which is kind of cool. Did you have a question?
Yeah, your data set, is that just vehicle collisions or vehicle inanimate object collisions? Does the weight have a
So what I'm going to show, I don't know if we're going to have time for it. We have all accidents. So the stuff I'm going to focus on today is 2 vehicle accidents. We also have multi-vehicle accidents. We have vehicle against motorcycle, vehicle against pedestrian, vehicle against tree, vehicle against ditch. We have all of it. And in the 60-page paper, we look at all of these and see what we can learn from those accidents and the benefits of vehicle weight. We also, I don't know if we're going to have time for it, look at m000 crash tests, right? What's the sort of simulation benefits of vehicle weight from crash tests, and do we see the same in vehicle against tree? And we see the exact same results that they see in crash tests. So this these 20, 30 slides I'm going to show you, we're going to talk about them for 50 minutes. This was 3, 4 years, mostly because I work very slowly and don't respond to email, worth of effort and lots and lots of estimation. But the basic idea is generally pretty simple. Now, when we started thinking about it, it took us about 3 months to get to what took you about 30 seconds. All right, so you should become a faculty member. It only will involve three more years here and about 5, 6 years PhD. It's a couple $100,000 really. What's the big deal, right? Yeah, exactly. But the point here is this is very similar to an arms race. You are all born in a time when the arms race wasn't really relevant. But basically what happened, I'm not a historian, I'm an economist, but I lived right at the border to the Czech Republic, so this was in the news all the time, right? The U.S. built more nuclear weapons in response to the USSR building more nuclear weapons. Then the U.S. Again matched what the USSR built, and then the USSR built what the U.S. built. So there was this arms race that in the end we had a nuclear arsenal that could destroy the world hundreds of times over. So this is very similar, right? So what happens? If I buy a big vehicle, it makes everyone less safe. Everyone else gears up by also buying a heavier vehicle by improving their safety. Their vehicle choices then again make everyone else less safe, and everybody else gears up by buying even heavier vehicles. Everybody else then again turns around and says, wow, the vehicle's gotten even bigger, I'm going to buy an even bigger vehicle. Sounds crazy. But have you observed what has happened to parking lots over the past decades? Just for fun, go on Edmunds or one of the car websites and just click through the Ford Explorer over the past two decades and just watch what happens to vehicle weight over time. I'm also happy to send you, pick a random vehicle, I'll send you the weights over time, I have all of them. But cars have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and the cars people buy have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. Are car manufacturers forcing these vehicles on us? We're innocent. The evil car manufacturers just designed these cars and we have no choice but to buy them. Is that the state of the world? No. How do car manufacturers figure out what cars they're going to make? They ask people, right? What kind of cars do you want? What features do you want? They do a pretty good job. Some car manufacturers better than others, subject to existing regulations. What do you want in vehicles? Where has all technological innovation gone in vehicles over the past 20 years? Fuel efficiency? Carbon fiber? How many horsepower does the base VW Golf have today? I think next model year is 170, but it's 150, right? 20 years ago, that was 60 horsepower. So all technological innovation, and there's a guy, Chris Middle at MIT, who got his PhD here, who's worked on this, showed that basically what we've done is we put a lot of effort into making cars more powerful and bigger at the same time, right? So we can observe this, that the fleet has gotten heavier and bigger. Now, we would all agree that some degree of disarmament would be possibly efficient, right? Was it efficient, meaning maximizing social welfare for the USSR and the US to build these nuclear arsenals over time that you're never going to use because you only need to destroy the world once, right? That's plenty. No, right? So what happens if you do away or do less joint armament? What could you do with that money? Other stuff, right? Education, for example. I would be in favor of that. Give you guys a break on tuition and improve facilities here. Free bicycle parking for everyone. But the point here is, what disarmament would do, it wouldn't decrease the probability of a nuclear conflict at all, right? But it affects the amount of money we spend on it. So the way we think about this problem here is if we make the entire vehicle fleet lighter, it doesn't make fatalities lower here because you're taking away the protective benefit, but you're also taking away the external cost at the same time. But what happens is you end up with a lighter fleet that's more fuel efficient, so we spend less money on gasoline, and it's billions and billions of dollars, as I'm happy to send you the paper. You're going to need less tires and your roads wear less. So we're talking about tens of billions of dollars in